I don't even support religious freedom. Religious freedom is what sends people to hell. To say I support religious freedom is to say I support idolatry.
This is John MacArthur. If you're unfamiliar with him, he's been a televangelist since, oh my God, the 1960s at least. He's like one of the early televangelists. And he's clearly saying here what a lot of other televangelists are afraid to say openly. We don't support religious freedom. We don't believe in freedom at all. We believe that people should follow our expectations and beliefs and guidelines and morals and whatevers. And if you don't, then you shouldn't live here. Simple as that. Well, I wanted to talk about some John MacArthur clips, some older ones, some from the pandemic era. One clip particularly I grabbed before it was scrubbed from the internet, and it's never seen the light of day. Until today. I'm going to show it today for the first time. It's never seen the light of day because it was banned everywhere during the pandemic for misinformation. So it's going to be a pretty interesting clip, in my opinion. But the reason I wanted to talk about John MacArthur in the first place, I'm sorry, I was looking at this song by Ted Nugent about jailbait. Well, I don't care if you're just 13, you look too good to be true. You know the song. I don't know how. I don't even know. Look, I don't have time to hit everything. We can only talk about this dude right now. Ted Nugent is his own can of worms. This is on rightwingwatch.com. Influential MAGA church pastor John MacArthur judges MLK Jr. as not a Christian at all. Unfortunately, there doesn't appear to be like a clip of it. But like I said, we'll go through some clips with John MacArthur in a second. You know what? Let's go through the clips first. Let's talk about who the guy is before we jump in. If you're unfamiliar, because some people are, unfamiliar with who he is and what he believes and what he does. Let me show you who John MacArthur is. This clip is from 2022. It's early January 2022 is when MacArthur released this one.
I read the other day that one of the evangelical publicists, whatever that is,
yeah, I don't know what that is,
said he's happy to let us know that the new administration will uphold religious freedom.
Administration. Is he talking about Biden? I don't know. I mean, that should be good, ostensibly, right? At its face, every televangelist, every religious person in the United States should want religious freedom to be upheld. You should want the ability to practice your religion the way you see fit without being impeded upon by others, basically, right? Okay?
Really? The new administration will uphold religious freedom? I don't even support religious freedom.
I mean, just saying the quiet part out loud over here.
Religious freedom is what sends people to hell.
Okay, but you acknowledge that we live in a very diverse country, right? You acknowledge that we have people who are Hindu and Muslim and Jain and Sikh and Buddhist and whatever, right? So we should be allowed to live whatever life we want to live without having to worry about your perception of the moral system that you believe the Bible espouses? Quick note before we continue, I want to let you know I just wrote a book. If you want to check it out, owenmorgan.com/book. It's a book about my experiences within Jehovah's Witnesses. It's completely understandable if you know nothing about Jehovah's Witnesses. And if you're a Christian, it's a good reference to use for why Jehovah's Witnesses are wrong about their interpretation of the Bible. The last chapter of the book is 100 questions that I have for the governing body. I'm selling the last chapter separately as its own separate guide if you guys want to get that too. So check it out, owenmorgan.com/book. I'd appreciate that. Well, I've got news for you there, John MacArthur. The Bible espouses every moral system. Out of 32,000 verses, 66 books, dozens of authors of varying wealth and status and fame they all had different ideas about who should do what and when and where and how and with whom. If you have a moral belief, it can be justified through the Bible. So John MacArthur here has a set of moral beliefs, moral precepts that he lays out for his congregation. But he doesn't get those morals from the Bible. He gets those morals from John MacArthur and John MacArthur's parents. And he searched through the Bible to find the verses that support his already existing moral system. So John MacArthur doesn't believe in religious freedom. He wants to force everybody around him, Muslim, Sikh, Jain, Buddhist, everybody, to be Christian, evangelical Christian.
People to hell. To say I support religious freedom is to say I support idolatry. It's to...
What? I'm sorry. Where did idolatry come into the equation? Religious freedom means I have the freedom to like make any decision I want and do whatever I want. I don't have to be part of a religion, or I don't have to be part of your religion. If I want, I can be a Methodist or nothing. He's saying he doesn't believe in religious freedom as in I should be obligated to be part of his religion, of his denomination of Christianity. That's psychotic.
Idolatry. It's to say I support lies. I support hell. I support the kingdom of darkness. You can't say that. No Christian with half a brain would say, we support religious freedom. We support the truth.
That is absolutely psychotic. We don't support religious freedom. We support the truth. Well, that's the thing there, John. Everybody thinks they have the truth. I'm 100% sure that I'm correct about every single opinion that I hold. As are you. That's how it works. So we have to agree on some ground rules. We will all agree to not step on each other's toes because I think I'm right and you think you're right. You don't have a right to impose your beliefs about whether you are right on me. You don't have a right to do that. Your right to swing your fist ends at the tip of my nose. You can swing it anywhere you want except for here. When you start swinging your fist here, it's not a protection, or the police preventing you from swinging it here is not a violation of your rights. It's a protection of my rights. This guy doesn't seem to get it. It's not getting through his thick skull that we live in a diverse country with diverse ideas and diverse opinions, and his is not the only one. And guess what? Surprisingly, believe it or not, he's not even the most confident about his opinion. I guarantee it. I don't know who it is, but there's somebody in the United States that's more confident about their religious beliefs than John MacArthur is. So anyway, this guy is 110% sure that he is correct about all of his beliefs. But there are other people out there that are more correct than him, believe it or not.
Administration supports religious freedom. Get ready. Persecution will be ramped up because the more supportive they are of the devil's lies, the less they're going to tolerate the truth of Scripture.
Quick interjection, this won't take long. If you like what I do, I'd appreciate it if you watch the video to the end. YouTube bases video reach off of watch time, so watching even an extra minute makes the video go further. Liking and subscribing goes a long way too. Finally, it would be awesome if you guys checked out my Patreon. All links are in the description, of course. Okay, back to the video. So he says, when an administration is favorable and supportive of religious freedom, it means persecution for Christians. Isn't that wild that he views it that way? What he's saying basically is, I hold a position of privilege right now. I hold all the cards. I control everything. I am in authority here. And when you tell me that you are giving people religious freedom, that means you're taking that authority away from me and allowing people to make their own choices. I don't want that. I want to make the choices for them. I want to force people to adhere to my beliefs about abortion or about being gay or about whatever. I want to force them to adhere to that. And religious freedom is stifling that authority. That's what he's saying. That's psychotic. We're about to hit the part that was like banned for COVID reasons in a minute. We'll get there. Just keep listening.
We're not going to lobby for freedom of religion. What kind of nonsense is that? We are in the world to expose all those lies as lies.
So he doesn't want religious freedom. I don't know how it can be any clearer than that. Dude is looking for an opportunity to force his beliefs, to impose his beliefs upon other people. Now that you know who John MacArthur is, there are more videos that I want to watch of his that we will get to, like the one that was banned from YouTube and everywhere else, and that he erased from his website. We'll get to that one in just a second. That's this one. That's why it's so low quality, because I had to like record it manually. It was rough. But yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Now you know who he is. Let's talk about this Right Wing Watch article about him saying that MLK Jr. is not a Christian at all, basically. John MacArthur, an influential right-wing megachurch pastor and author, told an audience at his church last week that Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was not a Christian at all. Damn, I wish we had the video. MacArthur described the pastor and civil rights icon as a non-believer who misrepresented everything about Christ and the gospel. Fascinating that he's saying it that way, because Martin Luther King Jr. was definitely more socialistic. I mean, he was much more Jesus-like than this guy, than John MacArthur was. He was more like Jesus by like a mile and a half than this guy right here. But John MacArthur doesn't seem to understand that, you know, like Jesus was a socialist effectively. This just blows me away. Tell you what, guys, my wife is sick, so I'm going to go feed the cats real quick. I'm going to let this play. Watch this debate between Larry King and Gavin Newsom, young Gavin Newsom, newly elected to San Francisco mayor. He was debating John MacArthur all the way back in 2004. It was 04. Debating him on same-sex marriage. Because George Bush was trying to push a constitutional amendment to ban gay marriage. Constitutionally. Anyway, listen to him debate Newsom. It slaps. I'm going to go feed my cats. I'll be right back.
It's a choice you make. It's a simple choice.
Did you make the choice to be heterosexual?
I don't think I had to make a choice to be heterosexual. I think that's a natural thing.
Wait a minute. In other words, one is a choice and one is not.
Yeah.
So he was unlucky and you're lucky.
Because you're not talking about, because it's natural to be heterosexual. That's
what do you mean by natural?
Well, I mean, that's the way God made us. That's
but
normal.
But if he doesn't feel that way, what is he then? He's not a sinner. It wasn't his decision.
Yeah, I think it was his decision.
I would absolutely love for the pastor to point out for me when in my life I made that decision, because I have to tell you, it caused a lot of pain in my family. It caused a lot of pain in me. It's a very, very tough thing that I had to go through.
MacArthur, considered one of the most influential evangelical preachers in modern times, has been under fire in recent years for having repeatedly shamed or ignored victims of abuse while protecting their abusers. He has a history of preaching what Baptist News has called cringe-worthy things, while he was criticizing a now-defunct evangelical pastors' conference for having honored King several years ago, which MacArthur described as evidence of the impact of the woke movement. Video of MacArthur's comments was posted on social media by a Christian podcaster and reported by other Christian outlets. Martin Luther King Jr. famously was born the same year as Anne Frank. He died in 1968. He was assassinated, I believe, 1968. And our old friend John MacArthur here has been preaching since the 1960s. So he was around to see Martin Luther King Jr. He was there. He saw the dude. He saw the ideas that he espoused, and he recognized that Martin Luther King Jr. was a more accurate representation of Jesus than John MacArthur is, which is to say he was more socialistic, you know, take care of the poor, love the poor, shun wealth, give all of your money to the poor, and help them any way you possibly can, you know, that kind of thing. That's a message Jesus spread. And that's the message that Martin Luther King Jr. kind of adhered to, by and large, right? Certainly more than this guy right here did. This is just wild, man. King, a Baptist minister and co-founder of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, drew on his faith to inspire and mobilize Americans to overcome the system of Jim Crow segregation and win passage of federal voting rights and civil rights legislation. In 2012, Time magazine called him one of the 20 most influential Americans of all time. I have to wonder how it is that Martin Luther King Jr. got such a good reputation, even among evangelicals. He's just got a good reputation. How did that happen? Kind of blows me away. Not with this guy, apparently. This one, by the by, is from 2020. It's from August 16th, 2020. He was court-ordered to do one of three things. John MacArthur was. Okay, this is right when the pandemic hit. We were right in the middle of it. We didn't know what we were dealing with. We didn't know if people were going to be dying or if they were going to be permanently sterilized or what. We had no idea what was happening. Brand new, novel virus that we had never dealt with in our lives, in our history. And this guy comes out here and sets out, seemingly, to spread it. That's what it seemed like. So he was given three options, okay? Option one, spread your chairs out 6 feet, take temperatures at the door to see if anyone has a fever, and social distance, like no hugging, no handshaking for a short time until we can deal with this. That was option one. Option two, hold services outside in the parking lot. Get a big, a canvas, what do you call it? Like, one of the gazebo I don't know what you call it. It's not a tent, but it's like you've got the metal poles that kind of go in a square and then you kind of cover it, or just giant umbrellas. You can get some of those and some tables, right? Everybody sit, you get a megaphone, or you can get like one of those speaker things that people at Times Square have, and it hooks to your belt and it sends a message out that way. You could do that. That's an option. So take temperatures at the door, or hold services outside, or hold services on Zoom. Those were three solid choices that this guy could have gone with. And which choice did he make? Which option did he pick? Get people killed. Space the chairs closer. Ban people from wearing masks at his church. That's at least what Greg Locke did. I'm not sure if John MacArthur did that or not, but Greg Locke certainly did. That was kind of the trend among evangelicals. Ban masks at their church. Ban taking temperatures at the door. Make chairs closer. Hug everybody. Kiss everybody. Breathe on everybody. Whatever you can do to kind of own the libs by killing each other, effectively. So anyway, the state of California basically, to my knowledge, I don't remember the case now. It's been forever, but if I remember correctly, John MacArthur was ordered to hold services outside, take temperatures at the door, or do it on Zoom, and he refused all three. And this is the result 6 months later.
We're having church. It's actually hard to figure out exactly what the city is trying to do.
No, it's pretty clear, trying to prevent the spread of a pandemic. Did you really not pick up on that? Is this the first you're hearing of it? It had been happening for 6 months. This was August 16th, 2020. And the U.S. really started taking it seriously about February 23rd, 2020. The stock market started to tank. Everybody was wearing masks. Everyone was being careful. They were listening to the CDC. Trump took it more seriously. So it was about 6 months after that. And we were all still taking it very seriously.
With us and to us, but we know they don't want us to do exactly what we're doing.
Which is to space the chairs closer and ban masks and stuff. Yeah, no, I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to get more people killed. To be fair, I'm not sure if he banned masks or spaced the chairs closer, but he absolutely refused to take any measures whatsoever to protect anybody at all.
Right now. And we're not meeting.
People clapping for this.
We're not meeting because we want to be rebellious.
Yeah, that's exactly why you're doing it. Yes, you are.
We want to be rebellious. We're meeting because our Lord has commanded us to come together and worship him.
Which you could have done with chairs spaced out 6 feet, or you could have done outside, or you could have done on Zoom. All good options. This guy chose option number 4, get everybody killed. Good job.
There was a court order that granted this church and this church alone the right to meet indoors, and the power.
Yeah, I don't trust what he's saying here. This is inaccurate. That's not what was happening at the time. There weren't like these bans and all this other stuff the way he's portraying. But anyway, I keep listening.
And the powers of the city were not happy about that. They were going to be asking us to do 2 things, social distance and wear masks. We agreed, look, we'll comply for a few weeks. They asked that for 3 weeks. We're not wanting to be defiant.
Didn't want to be defiant, huh? Okay, go on.
We will do what is reasonable.
What's reasonable is taking temperatures at the door, spacing chairs out 6 feet, wearing masks, not breathing in each other's faces or hugging or kissing or whatever, making out in the coat room or whatever it is people do at church nowadays. That's reasonable. Not doing any of that. Being careful. Holding services on Zoom or even outside. That's reasonable.
We will do what is reasonable. That was not enough for the city, so they went to the appellate court at the last minute on Saturday late.
Again, don't trust a word out of his mouth. I don't remember the case, but I don't trust him at all. So.
And had that order removed. So the good news is you're here, you're not distancing, and you're not wearing masks.
You're catching this, right? So he was only agreeing tentatively. He only claimed to agree tentatively to space chairs out and mandate masks at the door of the church and take temperatures. He never actually did it, apparently. And he's, proud of it. What is wrong with you? You know what? I'm not that guy. I'm not always bagging on people. I just don't know why somebody would do such a thing.
Wearing masks. And it's also good news that you're not outside because it's very hot out there.
Well, guess what? John MacArthur has been in this business for 50, 60, 70 years. I don't know how many years, a long time. He's got plenty of money. He could buy mobile air conditioners. He could buy tables with benches built in and umbrellas to protect people from the heat. Here in New York City, in Manhattan, you walk down the street. During COVID, people were afraid to go indoors and eat indoors with no masks. So there's there's a bike lane and there's a parking area on the street. Well, some restaurants took a single parking space or 2 parking spaces, and they built a full-blown wooden structure with plastic roofing or whatever, and a light that comes down from the top, and from that light you have these 2 heaters that are really, really, really warm, and you can sit in this little open structure. There's no door to it. It's open. You can sit there at this table under an umbrella with a light with these heaters in 30-degree, 20-degree weather, and you're perfectly warm. He totally could have done something like that. He had the money to do it. And he would have been so respected by everybody, by the community, by everybody from here to Texas if he had just done something that basic. He didn't even do that. He didn't even take temperatures at the door. Jesus, dude.
Because it's very hot out there.
Yeah, he was just doing this to be defiant. That's it.
So the Lord knew you needed to be inside and unmasked. They're not willing to work with us. They just want to shut us down.
No. You are perfectly free to hold church services outside or on Zoom or space the chairs out the whole time. No one's trying to shut you down. Stop with this persecution nonsense. Jesus Christ, dude. Okay, so now we've got the video. This one may or may not make it through the censors. This one has been banned from YouTube for years. Late August 2020. So this is just like the following week. In fact, it may have been the same service. No, it wasn't the same service. Maybe the following week.
I haven't made really any comments about COVID or...
Really? You haven't? Could have fooled me.
The lockdown and whatever else is going on in what is called a pandemic.
In what is called a pandemic. Go on.
I don't want to offer myself as any kind of an expert, but...
Good, because you're not.
A rather telling report came out this week, and for the first time, we heard the truth.
Oh, here we go.
The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, which is the national organization, government organization.
Yeah, we know what the CDC is. Go on.
That is to report to us the truth about disease.
Okay.
Said that, in truth, 6% of the deaths that have occurred can be directly attributable to COVID.
Are you trying to tell me, John MacArthur, you're telling me, again, this video was banned from YouTube, from literally everything, Twitter and Facebook and all of it. In fact, he took it off his own website at the time when if he filmed this. So you have probably not seen this before unless you've seen some of my older John MacArthur stuff. But even then, I think YouTube may have taken some of that stuff down. Anyway, the CDC, you're telling me the CDC says that only 6% of COVID deaths are attributable to COVID? And what was his evidence for that again?
Organization, that is to report to us the truth about disease, said that in truth.
Okay, so the CDC, he claims the CDC made this claim that only 6% of COVID deaths could be attributed to COVID. Now, what was his source? Where did he hear that about the CDC?
And whatever else is going on in what is called a pandemic. I don't want to offer myself as any kind of an expert, but a rather telling report came out.
Oh, a rather telling report. I see. That's where he heard that the CDC said this stuff. A rather telling report. Okay. And who wrote this report, John? Can you tell me where I can find this report? This is called weasel words. When they refer to some ambiguous authority, they can't tell us who it is or what the source is or where to find it. We can't verify ourselves or any of that stuff. We just have to take his word for it. I don't want to offer myself up as an expert, but I'm going to pretend to know more than the CDC, and I'm going to claim that the CDC said this stuff, whether they said it or not.
And whatever else is going on in what is called a pandemic. I don't want to offer myself as any kind of an expert, but a rather telling report came out this week, and for the first time...
And then he goes on about the CDC. Yeah, totally, absolutely. I believe you without question. You know, the sad thing is, of course, I'm being flippant. I don't believe a word out of his mouth. Sorry, sometimes I swear. The sad thing is that his church does. They believe every word out of his mouth. Everything that he says. You know why? They think he's a man of God. They think that God is speaking through him. Anything that this guy says, they believe without question. So when he says, a rather telling report came out this week, they assume that's true. They don't need any more information about it. Just sad. Absolutely sad.
94% cannot.
94% of COVID deaths can't be attributed to COVID, he claims. Okay? Actually, there is a grain of truth to what he was saying. Of course, that's usually how conspiracy theories work. There's a grain of truth to some things. The way that the CDC was tracking deaths originally was if they died within 30 days of a positive COVID test or within 60 days of a positive COVID test, I forget, then it was counted as a death that was linked to COVID. Of course, more information was added to it. Like, what did they get in a motorcycle accident? If so, then it doesn't count as a COVID death. Did they have pneumonia? Did they die of pneumonia after testing positive for COVID? That would be reasonably considered a COVID death. Well, the CDC lowered it from, I think, 60 days to 30 days a while back. And it did decrease the death rate, the mortality rate of COVID a little bit, but it's still an extremely deadly disease. One which completely justified John MacArthur taking temperatures at the door, spreading chairs out, and encouraging people to wear masks. That simple. That's all anybody asked of the guy. Seriously. He refused to do even that.
Of the 160,000 people that have died,
How quaint, right? Only 160,000 people at the time.
9,210 actually died from COVID.
I mean, this is just complete nonsense, obviously. He's just lying here. He's, at best, extrapolating from some unknown report, which he won't give to us. We have no way of verifying. We know nothing about. And we have way more accurate data today that shows that he was just completely full of at the time. And you know what? If you don't know in a situation this serious, in this moment in history that we're watching unfold with John MacArthur, keep your mouth shut. If you don't know for sure, keep your mouth shut. Let the experts speak. He says, I'm not an expert. Well, shut your mouth then. You have no place in this conversation anywhere. Let the experts explain things. That's what I tried to do. I listened to the experts and I repeated what they had to say verbatim. To be perfectly honest, I wasn't worried about COVID at first. In January, I heard that COVID was spreading around in China and that it had made its way to other countries. I wasn't worried because the scientific community at the time had not given me reason to believe that there was something to be worried about. As time went on, as we learned together, by February, I accepted it. Just like that. The moment that the scientific consensus was, we need to be careful, we need to stay inside, we need to, wash our hands more often, we need to wear masks, just like that. That's it. I started doing it. Washing my hands, wearing a mask, staying inside as much as possible, social distancing. This guy holds people's lives in his hands. They trusted him. And what did he do? He lied to them. At the very least, I guess lying implies intentionality. At the very least, he told them something that was factually false and claimed to have received this information from some unknown report that came out that week. That's the kind of guy we're dealing with in John MacArthur. If you remember what this story was about in the first place, dude claims MLK Jr. was not very Jesus-y. Wasn't Christian at all, he says. Not a Christian at all. Does it get, lower than this, honestly? Sadly, the answer is yes, it does. By the way, COVID did circulate around his church as a result of his decision to not hold meetings on Zoom or outside or space chairs out or whatever. COVID swept through his church and people got sick.
There is no pandemic.
What a wild thing to say in August of 2020. Absolutely wild thing to say. And to get claps for it.
There is no pandemic. And that's what you've been thinking. We have the responsibility, I think, as spiritual leaders to be patient until the truth emerges.
Oh, now we're being patient until the truth emerges, huh?
We've all been suspicious of the fact that we've been meeting together now for weeks and weeks and weeks. We don't know anyone who's ill.
But that's factually incorrect. People fell ill. And also, even if you didn't know somebody who fell ill, now you do. Do you know how common it is to meet somebody who has not had COVID in the United States? It's like winning the lottery if you've never had COVID. I've had it like 2 or 3 times, and I work from home. I don't go out. I don't go to bars. I don't go to restaurants. I don't hang out. The only time I ever go out anywhere is either going to the park, or I'm going to like a hot dog stand, or getting gelato down there at Amarino on, what is it, on 45th and 8th, I think, maybe? That's the only time I ever go out. I almost never spend time inside, and I've caught it 3 times. Let me look it up out of curiosity. There's a statistic. It's extremely rare to have not caught COVID by this point in time. Okay. Virtually every American ages 16 and older, 96.7%, had antibodies either from getting vaccinated, surviving the virus, or some combination of the two by December, the CDC now estimates. The study found that 77.5% had at least some of their immunity from a prior infection. This is from CBS News, and it was published in July 2023, and it was about 2022. Well, anyway, apparently it's extremely uncommon for people to not have caught COVID at this point. That was what the scientists were saying was going to happen. We needed to try to flatten the curve, you know? And what did this... I'm not going to bag on people. What did this fine-looking gentleman say about it? He said, I don't know anybody who's had COVID. 6 months after the pandemic started.
Weeks and weeks and weeks, we don't know anyone who's ill. Nobody in our congregation's ever been to the hospital with this. We know
that's certainly different now.
There are reasons for this that have nothing to do with the virus. There's another virus loose in the world, and it's the virus of deception. And the one who's behind the virus of deception is the arch deceiver, Satan himself. And it's not a surprise to me that in the midst of all this deception, the great effort that is going on is to shut down churches that preach the gospel.
Totally. That's what it was all about. Trying to shut down churches. Absolutely.
Preach the gospel. The level of deception going on today matches up with the book of Revelation.
So this video was very difficult to find, even from his own website, because he made a complete fool of himself, and he knows he did. The dude said, this virus is fake, effectively. The virus is only a pretext to shut down churches. It is a pretext by Satan to shut down churches. That's an embarrassment. Anyway, let me know what you think about John MacArthur. He's absolutely terrible. I had more stuff I wanted to say about him, but sadly I don't have the time. Maybe I'll cover him in a future episode. This guy is just fascinating. Endlessly fascinating. Yeah, tell me what you think about him in the comments.